Hello, I'm Rena, aka dunefoxx. If you're new here, welcome, and if you've been here before, nice to see you again. Today, I'm going to be unboxing the 1/6 scale ANBU Kakashi Hatake figure from SuperBomb Studio. And this is a resin figure. It comes in two sizes, a 1/8 scale and a 1/6 scale, and I obviously went with the bigger one. The process for ordering resin figures or garage kits is not as straightforward as your typical PVC scale figure, and I can get into that in another video if anyone's interested, but for now, I'm just going to talk about my experience with this particular figure. Though, if you want to see that video, let me know in the comments down below. I ordered this figure with a matching ANBU Itachi Uchiha scale figure, which I'm going to be unboxing in a separate video, but I figured I'd mention it now because the shipping price I'm going to show you is for both figures, so keep that in mind. The shipping box this figure came in, which you can see right here and in the shipping invoice photo, measured at 230mm in depth, 540mm in width, and 610mm in height, and the box weighed around 6.1 kilos. I'm not really sure how shipping costs are determined, but I paid $105 in shipping for both figures because I opted for standard shipping. Now, take note that the items shipped by sea from overseas, specifically China all the way to the United States, and these were two huge boxes, hence the pricing. I placed my order last December 28th, and it actually took less than a month for it to arrive from the time they shipped it. So I got my tracking number on January 16th, and I received the package around February 8th. I wish I could give you the exact number for shipping for just this figure, but I can't. Hopefully you can still use this as a reference if you're planning on ordering him. You can buy Kakashi and Itachi individually. I just opted to buy them together because it came out cheaper that way. And since we're on that topic already, I'm going to talk about what you're probably curious about the most, how much this figure costs. I'm going to preface this by saying pricing for anime resin figures and garage kits are kind of tricky because a majority of them come from studios or companies in China, and most of these companies don't have official websites. Instead, they post information related to their figures on their social media, mainly WeChat official accounts or QQ groups, and they're almost impossible to access unless you have a China phone number, which I do not have. So it's pretty hard to find official info like release dates or the MSRP for these types of figures, and whatever I'm going to be posting here is just the latest info based on my research and information I can find. They may not be the most accurate. This figure is listed with an MSRP of 880 yuan, which roughly converts to $122 as of making this video. And I got mine from YesGK. Currently, they only have them listed as a bundle with Itachi. Half a year ago, when there was still an option to buy them individually, if I remember correctly, they were priced at $170 each for the 1/6 scale version, but if you bought them together, they were priced at $329, which is $11 cheaper than if you bought them individually. And that's exactly how much I bought them for. Because both of them are priced the same, I'm just going to divide everything by 2, including the shipping cost. So all in all, with shipping, this figure cost me $217 total. Full disclosure, I've actually opened this box before just to check for parts and damages because the package arrived a few days before I had to go on a month-long trip, and I didn't have enough time to do an unboxing video then. As with most resin or GK figures, you're required to unbox and document damages within a couple of days in order to avail of after-sale services. Unfortunately, breakages are more common in these types of figures, so I didn't want to risk it. Back to the actual unboxing. Most resin figures are packaged this way with multiple layers of thick polyethylene foam sheets taped together. and for the most part, the figure should be quite secure inside this. There are cutouts on the foam in the shape of the part it's holding. When I'm unboxing these types of figures, I normally start off with the smaller parts just to make sure I don't miss any of them. So, starting off with the slot on the lower left, there are 2 foam pieces lodged inside to secure the part, and the part itself is actually buried pretty deep in there. I had to pretty much dig for it. As you can see, it's wrapped in plastic, and I'm just feeling around inside to make sure there are no other pieces in there. There's another tiny piece of foam at the bottom, probably placed in there to support the part. And here it is. It's one of the wooden parts that attach to the base. Next, I'm going for the leftmost slot, which also has 2 foam pieces lodged inside. And the slot houses the sword that's going to go on his back later on. It's also securely wrapped in plastic. I'm going to go for this piece on the upper right. It's visibly one of the bigger parts, and there are 3 foam pieces resting on top of it. Not so much to keep it in place, but to cushion it. Before taking the big piece out, I figured I'd go for the small slot on the lower right, which has 2 more foam pieces lodged inside. There's a card with a photo of the figure, and it also has information for after-sale services on the back. Also inside this slot is the second wooden part that attaches to the base, which is also wrapped securely in plastic. Back to the big piece. As you can see, this one is not wrapped in plastic, but it has tissue paper covering it all over. This big piece attaches to the base, and ultimately, this is where Kakashi would be propped on. Next is the last small slot on the right that has a different kind of foam covering it. It's a soft piece of polyurethane foam, and there's another small piece of polyethylene foam to keep the part in place. This slot houses Kakashi's head, which is taped and wrapped in plastic, so it's very secure. And I'm guessing they made it a point to really cushion this part because of the ANBU mask attached to the side of his face. Moving on to the next big piece, which I'm assuming is the base. You can see the foam cutout on top of it covering it almost completely. There are multiple foam pieces inside to fill in the gaps and holes, and the base is wrapped in plastic. I'm just wiggling it a bit to gently pry it out, and at the bottom there's a small plastic bag with a piece of mounting putty. You'll find that with resin figures, some parts have magnets on them, and if you feel like the part is not stable enough or if it's a little loose, these little tabs come in handy. Last slot is the one on the upper left, which, as you can guess by the foam cutout, is Kakashi's body, and the foam was pretty stuck in there. It refused to budge, but I guess that's a good thing because it's really protecting the part underneath. I did manage to pull it out eventually without popping a nail, and I just find the foam cutout so funny. It reminds me of those chalk outlines in crime scenes. Anyway, this piece is not wrapped in plastic, but it is covered in tissue paper as well. It was also a struggle prying this piece out, only because I try not to be too forceful with resin parts because they tend to be more fragile and easier to damage. So I'm just pressing down on the foam as I gently tug the piece out. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how they packed this figure. There are 7 parts in total, and as far as I can tell, there are no breakages or chips on any of them. Okay, on to actually assembling the figure. Starting off with the base, it's pretty heavy, which is typical for resin figures. I would say the base is about 240 to 260 millimeters, and it has a layer of black felt on the underside. It also has a fairly small footprint because this figure is bigger vertically than horizontally. Next up are the 2 wood-looking parts that'll go on the base. They both have metal pegs on their undersides as well as a protrusion that slots into a recess on the backside of the base. I'm fairly certain that these have magnets on them only because they snap ever so slightly when you drop them in, but I could be wrong. These were a little tricky to put in since the metal pegs kept getting caught on the sides, but once they were in, they were set in place. The one on the left side though felt slightly loose compared to the one on the right. Well, not really loose, but you can definitely wiggle it a bit, so I would probably go back in with museum putty later on. Now, there's this big piece that looks like a broken pillar that attaches to the base as well. It has a thick metal peg on it, as well as a big protrusion that'll also slot into a recess on the base. This piece actually makes me a little nervous because one, it doesn't exactly attach downwards, but more so sideways. And two, this is the piece that'll be holding Kakashi, and I don't know if I actually trust it. I've been slightly wiggling it to see if it's actually stable, and so far it seems that way. And since I have that piece on already, I can finally put Kakashi in. You can see that there are two holes on the pillar where his feet are supposed to go. His left foot has a metal peg and protrusion on the underside, whereas his right foot only has a protrusion. I couldn't just drop his feet in. He wouldn't slot in properly if I started with the right foot, so his left foot definitely had to go in first. Assembling this, I was pretty concerned about how much his body is leaning forward, but surprisingly, it felt pretty secure there. After that is his head. There's a visible magnet on the underside, and this part just easily drops in. Lastly is his short sword or ninjato, and I'm just slotting it in the holder behind his gray flak jacket and his right hand from the back. The bandage on the sword's hilt does a good job of fitting snugly in his hand so it doesn't fall off. And with that, I'm done assembling the 1/6 scale ANBU Kakashi Hatake figure from SuperBomb Studio. So let's get right into my thoughts and comments. First thing that caught my attention with this particular figure is how dynamic it looked paired with the ANBU Itachi figure from the same studio, which I'm unboxing in a separate video as I mentioned earlier. They're meant to be displayed as a pair even though you can buy them separately, though I do think Kakashi still looks great on his own. There's definitely movement in this figure and he looks like he's about to spring into action any moment. I love the use of vertical space here. He is a pretty tall figure for a 1/6 scale, standing at 420 millimeters, but that's mainly because he is perched on a pillar. There are so many things I love about this figure, but if there's one thing they really nailed, it's the paint job. I don't care how good the sculpt of a figure is or how detailed the parts are. If the paint job is bad, it's going to look flat no matter what. But this studio got it right, and I'm going to rave about it. The broken pillar he's standing on, which I'm guessing is from a tori, those Japanese skates that you see in shrines, it's supposed to be a vermilion color, and instead they used a somewhat cooler shade of red, almost maroon, and this is great because you can still clearly tell what it is. Even though the color is muted, it still pops and it gives the figure interest without overshadowing the main subject, which is Kakashi. The weathering, shading, and highlights on this figure looks phenomenal. The stone very much looks like stone, and the wood very much looks like wood. You can see this extremely well in the broken pillar, especially in the cracks on it. The red part, which is implied to be painted, has more of a luster or sheen compared to the raw wood inside the pillar, which just looks like straight up wood. In the part where the pillar breaks in half and splinters, they do a good job of weathering and depicting where paint would have been stripped in real life, and the stone actually looks dusty, which is what you would expect from rubble. Overall, they just made really great color choices here, from his skin tone to his hair color to the clothes he's wearing. The figure looks gritty without looking dark or dirty, if that makes any sense. There's also no shortage of texture on this figure, and it's what makes it visually interesting. This is all thanks to the sculpt and, once again, the paint job. There is a clear distinction between different fabrics of his clothes compared to his gray flak jacket and black items of clothing that are smooth. You can clearly see the weave patterns on his pants. The bandages wrapped around his right thigh and arm also add more texture and interest to the figure. And this is something you wouldn't notice from afar because it's so small, but his glove is so detailed. You can see the side seams on it as well as creasing on the actual material. Now, the face is normally what I look at first in a figure, but because his face is a little obscured, my eyes naturally gravitated towards the exposed bits of skin. That's not to say his face is bad, it's actually pretty great, and I'll get into that in a bit, but I feel like I just need to mention that his skin tone is practically flawless. Coupled with the muscle definition thanks to the sculpt and paint job, his skin color and body are just perfect. But back to his face, I'm actually really happy with it. For something that's practically covered from his nose down, it's expressive. I love the fine lines they added under his left eye. It gives his face more character. They also managed to 1. Get all the fine details of his Sharingan in, and 2. Not make his light colored eyebrows look weird. His hair is actually also really done well. The way it's styled and falls over his face is just right. You'd be surprised by how many ANBU Kakashi figures get this wrong. One more thing I love about this figure is the base. It's not plain, but it's also not over the top. And the thing that really makes it great is the fact that it goes seamlessly with the base of the matching ANBU Itachi figure. If you decide to display Kakashi by himself, the base still looks interesting on its own. It depicts the scene perfectly and conveys what it needs to without looking convoluted or messy, which I find many anime resin figure bases suffer from. I know I've been going on and on about things I love about this figure, but what about things I don't like? To be honest, it's a struggle to find anything bad to say about this figure. If anything, maybe they could have fixed the black felt lining under the base because it's a little off. There are a few spots with cooling paint, but they're practically invisible. I guess if I really had to nitpick one thing, it would be the vertical scar on his left eye. They could have made it a tad bit lighter, but that's really all I can think of. This figure got everything right down to his ANBU mask and tattoo. So do I think this figure is worth it? Yes, 100% yes. If you're in the market for an ANBU version of Kakashi, in my humble opinion, this is it. If you're tight on space or budget, there's a 1/8 scale version. Trust me, you can't go wrong with this figure. Coupled with the ANBU Itachi figure from the same studio, you have yourself a display piece. They just go so well together. SuperBomb Studio, if you happen to come across this video, please, 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 I'm begging you to do another duo series with Yamato and Sai, preferably with bases that integrate well with this series.